Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fam Sports New York. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcelio Langella. Mars, Happy New Year. 2020 is finally over, thank goodness. We've been off the last couple weeks. How's it going, brother? Happy New Year.
No, it's going well, man. At the end of the day, I just want a year full of New York victories, to be honest with you. And it's been a real tough few years with how much losing we've been seeing. But, you know, what the craziest thing is that the New York Knicks look like the shining light.
We got a little bit
New York
of hope.
Sports. You know, there's some hope going on here.
Yeah,
I kind of like it.
And while we were gone, obviously we the Giants and Jets season ended, and a lot has gone on. We're going to dive into the football stuff. The Buccaneers and the Washington football team are playing right now. I have that on the second screen. But we have a lot of New York sports to dive into. We got Giants and Jets. Jets looking for a new coach. Giants are kind of bringing the gang back together, and we're going to talk about that. We're also going to dive into basketball, like you said, the Knicks and the Nets, both getting off to an interesting start. The Nets already running into a little bit of turmoil, and the Knicks doing well. And also, you know, my Mets trading for Francisco Lindor.
Yeah.
You know, Steve Cohen finally makes a big splash. So we got a full slate, and we want to welcome a Happy New Year to our fans listening. This is our first episode broadcasting on YouTube, so definitely check out our YouTube channel. But if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at FamSportsNY. Also check out our website, FamSportsNY.com, our YouTube channel, like I just mentioned. Everything you can get access from our website. So we're really excited to get this YouTube action going.
I know we're breaking barriers here at Fan Sports New York, and we've been breaking the podcast barrier, and now we're going to break the TV screen. That's the important thing.
We're trying to get into that YouTube barrier, and we're also the official podcast for Guy NYC Sports, which is an affiliate for GuyBostonSports.com, and they do a great job covering Boston and New York sports. I would definitely check it out. But I mentioned what we're going to talk about at the show, and let's start with it. We're going football with the Giants, and 6-10. They won the last game of the season against Dallas. And this year kind of felt like an interesting year because they finally kind of broke the curse that the Eagles and Cowboys had on them. I mean, they couldn't beat either of those teams. They beat them. They swept the Washington football team, which ended up winning the division. And we'll talk about the Philadelphia spectacle or the tank job that they did at the end. But the Giants, 6-10. And Mars, they're bringing Gettleman back. That was kind of like the big news is what's going to happen with Dave Gettleman. He's coming back. There was talks about Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator. Is he going to, get head coaching looks? And the Jets, it was funny. The Jets actually put in a request to speak with him, to interview with him. And then right after that, the Giants signed him to an extension. So the Giants were not going to let him go out.
Yeah, honestly, a few things. I got to say, I was glad for the Giants to finally get away from this stigma that they just couldn't beat the Cowboys or couldn't beat the Eagles, and they were finally doing it. I mean, they've been sweeping Washington for the past 2 years, I think. So it's never Washington. And ironically, Washington is the one team that makes the playoffs past the Giants. But no, I bringing back Gettleman, I thought it was pretty simple. I mean, first off, Gettleman did make some pretty solid acquisitions that did help. I think the biggest one's Blake Martinez. The fact that he literally is top 3 in tackles this year as Giants linebacker. And Giants linebackers have been horrifying. For at least, I can't even, 10 years? Yeah. And they finally now have a guy that is the cog, the main brain of this defense. And it just kind of, it's incredible. I mean, me and you already did where we were wrong for the year.
Yeah.
And I was completely wrong on the fact that I thought the Giants defense would be the liability. And I thought the offense would be the powerhouse. But boy, was I wrong. The Giants defense, Patrick Graham is he was a great coordinator. He was sought after by a lot of people. And I was surprised that the Jets did put a request to interview him. But I mean, the Giants did a smart thing. They re-signed him.
And that was the question that I kind of wanted to dive into, Mars. Because Gettleman and Mara had their press conference separated. And Mara said the reason he brought back Dave was a couple of reasons. One, he saw progress. right? And that's the question I wanted to kind of dive in with you is, was there progress in this 6-10 season? And not only was there progress, but he also talked about, having some continuity between Joe Judge. He liked the relationship that Joe Judge and Gettleman had. So when I look at the Dave Gettleman stuff, and I kind of spoke about this on the show, I was 50-50 with Dave by the time of the end of this season. And I understood arguments against Dave Gettleman, getting rid of Dave Gettleman and bringing somebody in. And I also understood the arguments of bringing him back. And if I just go down the list, Mars, and I'm that ring binder guy, so I like to write down my notes. The bad, okay? The record is not good. In 2017, when Jerry Reese got fired, they were 3-13, right? Terrible record. It was one of the worst in Giants history. In 2018, he went 5-11. 2019, 4-12, and 2020, 6-10. That's a 15-33 record. Like, that's not good. By no measure of standard is that good. Also bad. The 2018 offseason is not looking great. That is free agency and draft, unfortunately. Nate Solder, right? I understood why they made it at the time. The Giants, when he came in, had turnstiles at tackle. We're talking Eric Flowers and Bobby Hart. Like, that's what we're talking about at the offensive tackle spot. And so I understood bringing Nate Solder in. I do, right? But if you look right now, he opted out. We're paying him a boatload of money, and he's not even playing, right? Saquon Barkley, I love the talent of Saquon Barkley. He's hurt, so he didn't really contribute. Okay, Hernandez is out of the rotation. Lorenzo Carter, he got hurt. So you're looking at that 2018 draft, and you're not seeing a lot of contribution for at least this past season. And so that's a knock on him. And, a couple of things, the offense, right? 19th last year. They took a step back, 31st this year. Now, Daniel Jones reduced the turnovers, Mars, and we'll dive into the offense, right? We got to talk about the Giants' offense because that was the big debate at the presser. The Giants' offense and Daniel Jones, he reduced the turnovers. It started off terrible in the beginning of the season, but he actually really cut it back the last few games, and both the fumbles and INTs. But he threw 10 touchdowns. And in 2020, you can't be throwing 10 touchdowns.
No, you can't. And I completely understand the Giants fan point of view of being upset that Dave Gettleman's coming back. I get it. And I think it has to do more with the fact that you kind of made that major point in the beginning, this relationship between Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge, and this it's no longer like the Giants never followed that concept of the GM makes all the decisions when it comes to acquisitions of players, and the coach just uses those players to coach the team. The Giants have always been that group mentality of making decisions, and I think that Dave Gettleman is a perfect piece for that. I think in the beginning when he was first brought on, he made decisions on his own too much, and it didn't really work out. Yeah. Now, after last season, when I saw him kind of, I don't like using the word, but he was kind of neutered a little bit. He kind of had to be pulled back and say, we're going to be making more decisions as a unit, and the head coach is going to have a lot more say in the people we get. And I think that's what happened. I think that because of this kind of collaborative, group mentality, that it allowed Joe Judge to have a big say in who they got. Dave Gettleman was also big on this, and the Morrows are big on this. And some of the acquisitions this year were good, and I think the draft picks were pretty solid.
And that was the good part, and that I took away too, is the relationship with Joe Judge. Obviously, it worked. I don't know the dynamic changed that often from Pat Shurmur to Joe Judge, but what did change? I think the coaching, Joe Judge and his staff are better staff than Pat Shurmur and James Bettcher, because when James Bettcher wanted players, Dave Gettleman brought in guys from Arizona. The problem is they were washed.
Yeah, they weren't.
So the Giants went out in 2020 and they brought in Bradbury, which he drafted in Carolina. Great acquisition. Martinez, great acquisition. Logan Ryan was a Patriot guy, and that's why they brought him in. Ended up being a great acquisition for the Giants. And then you mentioned the draft, Mars. I know Thomas really struggled in the beginning, but the last month of the season, he was playing really well. You saw what we both liked about him coming out of college, okay? That was the last month of the season. And then you talk about a couple of the other guys. Holmes. Darnay Holmes was one of the better slot corners as a rookie. I mean, that was great. You saw McKinney at the end of the season. He had that interception to seal the game. And even Matt Pert, right? I know he struggled a little bit towards the end, but he was very solid in that tackle rotation when he came in at left and right tackle. So you saw glimpses. You saw progression. So that was the part of arguing that Dave Gettleman should come back.
Yeah, trust me. I think the Giants of all teams, not saying they were the only team, but I think they would benefit it more if there was a preseason.
Yes.
And you can tell that this was a young team getting better as the season progressed because starting off with 1-7.
Yeah, and they go 5-3.
Yeah, 5-3, and that is a big improvement for sure. Now, granted, does it really make you upset and angry? You want to hit your head against the wall when they lose games against the Eagles the first time,
yes,
and things like that. When they had the game won,
yeah,
and they blew it. Now, like that is guaranteed feeling. And then when you watch them play against like Arizona, where like games that they had the ability to win, they didn't. Like that's something that bothers you. And but the reality is, like you said, people got better. Unfortunately, one thing that I'm gonna kind of, maybe you'll be mad at me for it, but Daniel Jones did not take the step forward in which I wanted him to.
No, he didn't.
And that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest flaw of what's going on because it's weird. The Giants' quarterback situation is similar to what the Jets were going into year 3. Remember year 2, Sam played better obviously in year 1, but you didn't know yet if he was your guy.
No.
You know what I mean? And now you're looking at Daniel
Jones. But you
Jones.
like the signs.
Yeah.
And it's so funny you say that because that's exactly what this reminded me of. The Jets going 6-2 down the stretch last year, and you saw improvement in the second half of the season from Sam Darnold. And the last couple of games that Daniel Jones played when he got more healthy, against the Ravens, against the Cowboys, he played very well.
Mm-hmm.
He really did. He made some big-time throws, and that was what you wanted to see that you didn't see in the first half of the season. Now, it also correlates with how bad the offensive line started this season. They were the worst offensive line, in my opinion, in football the first 6 weeks. They were terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, they were
sure.
awful. And now you saw them improving over time, but you weren't seeing that same improvement from your quarterback. And it was a shame because that 4-game winning streak, I really thought that he was starting to play well, then he gets hurt. Then when he tried to come back in Arizona, he was terrible.
Yeah, I
couldn't move.
By that point, they were already he was already like diminished. Like he was not playing his normal self, which, when you look at the Giants in general, and I'm sure you'll probably mention this next, but it's really the disappointing thing is the offense.
Yes.
I mean, Jason Garrett coming in, granted, Giants fans kind of had looking at him like, why would we bring this guy in? He couldn't even win with the Dallas Cowboys. But you thought it was going to be a lot better than this. And the fact that Jason Garrett seems like he's going to be coming back, that as in all indications are pointing that way, unless the Chargers hire him as their head coach, which I highly doubt that it's going to happen. That's something that I'm a little concerned about because Jason Garrett seems like a coach that needs a particular set of players in order to be successful. As in, you need to mirror the Dallas Cowboys offensive scheme. And obviously not having Saquon Barkley mirroring Zeke hurts. Not having an actual tight end hurts. Not having a better than half in the league offensive line hurts. And having a solid wide receiver core that consistently catches passes hurts. So all these things go along with I was going to say Dave Gettleman, but Jason Garrett's offense, and you don't have those things. Not saying that this has to be a high school system that you change your entire system every year to go along with what you got, but you got to be more adaptable.
Yeah, and Jason Garrett didn't feel like he adapted to Daniel Jones' strength, which Daniel Jones was one of the more accurate deep ball throwers in the game, and we barely threw the ball deep.
Yeah.
Right? So, and, there was a big discussion, and Dave Gettleman and both, that Dave really went into it about they need to get playmakers on offense. This is an offense that was 31st of the league. And remember, last year with the same exact crew, by the way, and I think by the end of the season, the offensive line was better than last year's. So, with an improving offensive line and the same weapons last year, you went from 19th to 31st. So I get it. Golden Tate, he's washed. Okay, Shepard looks like he's slowing down, although towards the end of the season he was playing better. Slayton didn't take that step forward either. So, obviously you need playmakers. But I think this is a little deeper than just playmakers. And that's the part that concerned me the most about, the presser, is that they were really pushing for, listen, we just need to get more playmakers in for Daniel Jones. We don't want to change the continuity of the offensive scheme. Now, there is some say for that, but to me, this is a very flawed system, and unless it's going to have major changes, the Giants are going to not just have to boost playmakers, they're going to have to get multiple playmakers because they're not going to be they're going to have to make the most of what this offensive system is. I don't know if it was because Garrett didn't have faith in the playmakers that he didn't want to be aggressive. So I can't blame everything, but it was a bad sign that this team, 31st is more than just playmakers. The Giants don't have the 31st best playmakers in football.
No.
They don't.
No.
So that's the part that's concerning to me. Personally, I would let Jason Garrett go. I would hope that he nails the Chargers interview or nails one of these other interviews. And I know you're going to hear people talk, oh, well, Dan Jones got to learn his third system in 3 years.
So
he is going to have to.
Guess what? Because you have to do it anyway.
I think deep down inside, I think Daniel Jones might be okay with it.
Yeah, I think it'd be better off for him. I mean, I agree with you. I would have rather had Jason Garrett move on to greener pastures and bring in another offensive minded person. Just because, I mean, look, you have this young quarterback who has definitely shown signs of being successful, just like Sam Darnold did, and you don't want to put basically Daniel Jones go through the same issues of Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Right. You don't want to put him go through, because Sam Darnold, if you look at him, is a shell of himself. Right. Just a complete shell. And I got to give Daniel Jones credit. His first year was definitely way better than Sam Darnold's first year, but his second year was way worse than Sam Darnold's second year. Granted, he had injuries, just like Sam Darnold missed the whole first 4 games of the season.
Well, we got to look at the numbers. I don't think it's way worse, but it wasn't better.
Well, you said he had 10 touchdowns, correct?
Yeah.
Second year, Sam Darnold had like 19. So, I mean, like, he had way less touchdowns. And I'm just saying, I'm not trying to bring Daniel Jones down to the same level or anything, but I'm saying, like, second year, he didn't have his good year. No. And a big drop-off, not even just like a little one.
He had 24 touchdowns his rookie year down to 10.
And that's unfortunate because, like, when I look at the Jets and Giants in those first 2 years, the Giants have better receivers than the Jets did, especially Sam Darnold's second year as a quarterback. Like
we thought. I mean, Golden Tate and Sterling,
I thought first of all, Darius Slayton rookie year was great,
like,
and I thought he was.
That's the part that I'm like, what happened? Because, at the end of the day, what I would prefer is that Jason Garrett moves on and bring in a guy like Jay Gruden. They're cleaning house over in Jacksonville. A guy like Jay Gruden, I think, is a great offensive mind, and I know he's trying to prove himself to try to get back to the head coaching. He didn't do it enough in Jacksonville because they were practically tanking.
Yep.
So I think this would be a great opportunity.
And he liked Daniel Jones too.
And he liked Daniel Jones, exactly. So I think it would be a perfect match. And another thing, when you talk about getting weapons, the Giants are going to have to get a wide receiver 1, probably maybe even a wide receiver 2. Okay, they're going to have to get a tight end 1. Because listen, Giant fans, we all know Evan Ingram did not live up to expectations.
He's overrated.
He's overrated.
It's just,
he led the league. He had 11 drops, okay, which didn't lead the league, but you know what it led? I saw someone put up the stats. 11 drops that led to, like, he took away the most points in the NFL based on expected points on his drops.
And he's a Pro Bowler.
And he's a Pro Bowler, which was the most BS Pro Bowler. Right. We all know it was BS. And I'm not saying Evan Ingram's not a bad guy, but I never seen, number one, a Pro Bowler who I know this personally, and I know a lot of Giant fans feel the same way, hold their breath
every time
when the ball's thrown to them.
Yeah, no.
Okay? Usually you target our Pro Bowler. That's what you want. But with him, I'm holding my breath because you even saw it in the Dallas game. It ricochets off his hands, and his drops are like volleyball bumps for a spike that always ends up going to a defender. Always. It's the easiest pick. He always gives the easiest interceptions I've ever seen.
Every single time. And I completely agree with you. And it would actually fit with what Jason Garrett wants. And you need a tight end if he's the guy coming back. Just because you need a tight end that can actually, contribute in the blocking and also be a guy that is just can catch the ball. Like, just give you that. Can you at least catch the ball every time he throws it to your hands? I've seen him more than anybody else. Literally, just like go right through his hands every single time, and I don't really get it. I mean, listen, I'm a lineman, you're a back, but one of the first things you learn in Pop Warner is to make the diamond with your hands, and he just can't do that.
Every one big play he makes, there's 2 devastating plays, like momentum changing plays that happen with him.
Yep.
And it's the weirdest thing. I've never seen literally turnovers. Well, think it was 6 interceptions were a result of targeting Evan Ingram. It's unheard of.
No, it's
unheard of.
It's sick. And, listen, we can harp all day about the Giants' offense being horrifying. Because when you're literally the second to worst offense next to the Jets, and the Jets literally are an embarrassment of an offense, when you're just slightly better than them, that's bad.
Literally.
And you have a lot better weapons than the Jets did.
That's what we thought. I thought. I was like, this offense has some firepower. It felt like, number one, no one was getting open.
Nope.
Daniel Jones was getting bum rushed at the beginning of the year. Like, he had no one to throw to. And then when he threw to guys like Evan Ingram, disaster would happen.
Yeah. No, it felt like he was back in Duke.
I just don't understand. And I think the Giants need to be honest, because it didn't feel they were that honest with themselves about the offense. Obviously, you need playmakers. But I don't think it's purely playmakers. I think there is literally a systematic issue.
Yeah.
Because, our offense was painful. Watching the Jets and Giants this year on offense was painful. It made offense look so hard to score touchdowns.
The Giants and Jets were consistently the teams that would be in a 3rd and 8 situation, and you were like, we ain't getting this. Let's get the punt team ready. And that's just I'm watching the Bills. We watched the Bills today, and it was just like,
go up north to the state, and they're second in the league in offense.
Every time it would be like a 3rd and 4. Every single time, and they would get at least 8 yards per clip.
And even when they get sacked, and it was like 2nd and 15 or a penalty, you had confidence. I'm watching the Bills, and I'm like, they have a good chance of converting this guy.
Yeah.
Third and
I know today they had horrible 3rd down.
Yeah, but normally
they were the best 3rd down team in the NFL.
When it's the Giants and Jets, 3rd and 12 is it's a wash. Get ready to get the punt team ready. Get the punt team ready.
But the one thing, and we'll focus on now on the defense. The defense was surprisingly good, and that I think that's something that you can look as a Giant fan and be like, that's something to build on. And the fact that you re-signed Patrick Graham, extended him his contract,
extended Logan Ryan,
extended your key players, is great to see. Now,
granted, Williams, man, and Devin Tomlinson.
Listen, you have to keep these guys. I know that it's tough. I know a lot of people are looking at cap and it, but listen, your defense is finally having a stable year. Right, the Giants' defense for years.
Stunk.
Several years was the sole reason you lost games.
Outside of 2016, they literally. How many fourth quarters? And Giant fans who are listening and watching, they know how many fourth quarters did we blow. This was the one year the Giants' defenses were winning fourth quarters for years. Because the Giants' offense actually would give you leads, and we would blow it every single time.
Yeah, that's my thing. If I'm looking at it as a fan. When I was looking at it just on an outsider perspective, you have to keep these players. Leonard Williams on the Jets, and I always laugh when Giants fans, they're always going to rag on the Jets because they just love to do that. But one of the things is, Leonard Williams didn't play well on the Jets because the Jets stunk. Now, I'm glad Leonard Williams found himself on another team because I liked him when he was on the Jets. Fortunately, he didn't play at all the level he's playing right now. He has more sacks this year than he did his entire tenure with the Jets. And I'm just glad that he's finally finding his rhythm. And you don't want to be the team that just lets him walk away and then while he's rocking, go to another team, some other NFC team, go to I don't know, the Saints or something, some solid.
Saints are in cap hell, so that's not going to happen.
Maybe I know, but some good team that doesn't need another guy, and they just find a way to just add on to their great defense. Giants need every single dude that they can get, and you can't just let him walk away. I know you're going to overpay him. You are, right? You're going to overpay him because that's what always happens when you re-sign players.
But can I tell you, he had 11.5 sacks, and in Giants lore of recent memory, the only people that had that was JPP, Justin Tuck, and Osim Europe. Right? So the Giants, those guys have been gone for a while.
Yeah, and it's just having him. You obviously have Dexter Lawrence, who's playing really well.
Yeah.
You have these other cogs. The one thing you're missing is an edge rusher.
Yes. And
that's the one thing you're missing. And I think that if you get that.
And the second corner.
Yeah. If you get an edge rusher and an outside corner.
Although I did like what Love, and it was weird because they drafted Love as a corner. And they moved him to safety, and you could tell it was a long learning curve. They put him out in that last game. He actually held himself.
Yeah.
At corner, which is where he was drafted. So I never understood why the Giants refused to try him at corner. Maybe that is a home for him. But I think they need to keep that core, Tomlinson and Leonard Williams, and to draft an edge because you're not going to sign a stud edge. It's too much money. Okay, the Giants have to go out and get a wide receiver, and the Giants need to draft an edge rush. I know you're going to bring back X-Man, you're going to bring back Lorenzo Carter. You need to draft another edge guy because you need multiple edge guys because you don't have that bona fide stud.
Yeah.
So you need to keep fishing for that bona fide guy and hope for a draft pick.
We'll talk about this more when we get closer to the draft. But I was going to ask, would you rather have used your first pick for top wide receiver on the board or the best available edge rusher?
For me, because we're at 11, the Giants, if I was top 10, I'm not big on top 10 wideouts because history shows that you can get wideouts in later rounds, not like second round and beyond. Look at those top wide receivers. They're not all top 10 wideouts that were drafted in the top 10.
Yep.
These are guys in second round, third round. So you can do it in the next round. But if the best available player is a wideout, I say you take him. Because I don't know, there is no Chase Young in this draft, right? And I don't know if we're at 11, if they're going to fall in love with one of those edge rushers. They're kind of like a mid-round group. Grades.
At that point, when you're 11, you look at the best guy. And I hate saying just draft the best guy. But when you look at the best receiver, is he like the top of his class versus whatever the best available edge is? Is he like fourth best in his class? You're going to take the receiver. So
let's see how the board...
Yeah,
but I would be okay. I'll be honest. I'll be okay with it. I am okay with either. What I wouldn't be okay with is drafting, obviously, a running back. Okay? Even an offensive lineman, unless you really don't believe in Pert. I thought Pert was good enough to at least to give another try.
Yeah, that's something I don't think Giants need to worry about right now.
Obviously, his safety. Like, we're loaded at that.
What's going to be surprising...
And I wouldn't be... They were talking about corner. But we'll dive into the draft. Yeah. I wouldn't love it because I wanted a high-impact guy either at the edge or to get Daniel another weapon. That, to me, is important because we got to get Daniel right.
Your offense stinks. You got to address your offense. Like that. Yes. That's just pure... That's like straight facts.
Before we move to the Jets, because we spent a lot of time on the Giants, Washington scored a few minutes ago. It's 18-16. Okay? So the Washington's keeping it close. Washington barely made the playoffs. They earned it. They deserve it. I know everyone's it. The Eagles did a tank job.
Yep.
For Washington to get where they are. And the Heineke kid's actually been pretty impressive tonight. But they did a tank job. Okay? Everybody who clowning themselves, trying to pretzel themselves into buying into what the Eagles were selling, have been fools. And I just wanted to make that public because they've been absolute fools and I've been going after them because... No, it's not the same as what the Steelers did.
No.
Resting for the playoffs. It's not the same as what the Chiefs did. Okay? They did a tank midway through, not even midway, three-quarters through a game, and they put a practice squad guy out there. Okay? And if they were so 4D chess that Philadelphia was playing, so brilliant, so forward-thinking, why did their team hate it?
Yeah.
Miles Sanders hated it. Kelsey did not like it by all reports, and that had to come out days later to say, oh, no, we were okay with it. But you knew. I mean, how many multiple reports?
You could see it on the side.
Former Eagle greats.
Yeah.
But the only people who didn't like it was the Tank Gods, okay, PFF, and Jeff Schwartz, who's a clown.
Yep.
Okay,
and I'll make the distinction here, right? Because I agree with you completely. I think this was a pure tank job, and a lot of people were trying to defend it. It was just so obnoxious, like how you were trying to spin this to be like, yeah, you're only mad because you're a Giants fan but like the reality is they're trying to compare it to like the Jets like tanking. The Jets didn't tank; they just stink. And you know how you know the Jets weren't tanking because they won two of the last three games against good teams. So they were trying to win this entire time, but they just stunk, right? And I would have more respect for the Jets if they were one loss away from getting Trevor Lawrence. And they said, we're going to tank this game so we can get Trevor Lawrence. I would at least respect that more. I wouldn't be happy that they lost every game this season. But if they were saying we need a tank to get this generational quarterback, I would suffer through everyone ragging on the Jets for the week and say, when we draft Trevor Lawrence, I really don't care what you think. But the Eagles were tanking for 3 picks from the 9th to the 6th pick. And what are you going to get differently from the 9th and 6th.
Well, they're going to say that's a big difference. If a guy falls to 6, that wouldn't make there to 9. But what I'll tell you is this. Do you have any faith in Jalen Hurts? Because the big question, and I haven't heard anything that Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy. That was the big question. Wouldn't you want him to compete in that game, to try to win that game? That was the moment. It's a one-score game. Isn't that what you want to evaluate, not Sudfeld? So it's bullshit about the evaluation process. It was BS.
Yep.
So if you were defending the Eagles, just say you're okay with throwing football games. Because that's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did. They threw the game. Washington knew they threw the game. Philadelphia knew they threw the game. Everyone knows they threw the game. Only Doug Peterson came out and said, no, I was coaching to win. And I want to evaluate Sudfeld. Okay?
But when you're
the 27-year-old free agent over your rookie quarterback.
When you're coaching to win, and Sudfeld throws 2 picks the first 2 drives.
No, one was a pick, one was the fumble that on a snap, and he kicked it to the line.
And one of my favorites, and I'm sure you already saw this one too, when they tried to compare this tank to the Giants benching Eli Manning for Geno Smith. I remember when we saw that one, and we were just like, that was the dumbest argument I've ever seen. And the response is, well, okay, so they did bench Eli Manning, and then what happened? They fired the coach and the GM.
Yeah. So the Giant fans lost their minds.
Yep.
Me included. Coach and GM got fired, and everybody talked about it. So the comparison of, well, why is people talking about this? This has happened all. No, it didn't. Okay? So just admit that you're okay with them throwing. And it wasn't about the Giants, although it hurt because it was a close game, and all of a sudden you pretty much kneecapped the game by bringing Sudfeld in. So like there was like that false hope for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And then Sudfeld comes in, and we all knew it was over.
Yeah.
Even though Washington was literally trying to give you the game.
And the funniest is when, was it Montez Sweat that straight up just says, like, yeah, I can't, if you were still in,
who knows what would have happened.
Because we all know what would have happened.
Yeah, so just admit it. That's all. And now Doug can't admit it because the NFL would be pissed at him.
Yep. But
all of you people out there pretending that this was just a common run-of-the-mill daily football game, you're full of it. You were full of it. Let's go to the Jets, Mars. They fired Adam Gase.
Thank God.
I know it was a proud moment for Jet fans because he was terrible. I mean, there really is no.
Listen,
let's just not even dive into it.
First of all, I'm not even like I am not one of those people that just hopes people's misery. Like him getting fired, I'm not like happy about him being fired, but I'm just happy that we can move on, right? And one of the things that at least makes me a little bit happier was that at least people like, he might go work with Alabama, right, to be an offensive coordinator, which you need. You need to kind of start over.
We need to see this offensive.
Yeah, we need to see this offensive guru we keep hearing about, and like at least he'll get a job somewhere, right? That's something. But no, it was a shining day in his year of misery in which the Jets were dealing with, because now we can at least start fresh. Like it feels like we can start over, and I hate having to rebuild yet again, but it's something you need to do. And
it is.
Yeah.
And there's so many questions that surround it. And the Jets had their presser, and they spoke with Johnson and Joe Douglas. And Johnson said all the right things. And it was nice to hear some of the things that he said. But knowing the Johnsons, you can't fully buy it until you see it. And the big one was that Joe Douglas is really going to be commanding the ship. That was the big one coming out of the Johnsons. And what Joe Douglas said was that this is going to be a wide net of interviews, and Jet fans know we've already seen the process being taking place, and it's a long list. I mean, if I look at the list of the Jets' requested interviews and done interviews, it's pretty extensive. Now, the one that really surprised me is today, not too long ago, I think it was an hour ago or something, about Matt Campbell, the head coach of Iowa State, will not take an interview with the Jets, and that was a fan favorite among Jet Nation. I know it wasn't your fan favorite. We'll dive into the rest of the list, but I'm a little surprised on that one, to be honest. But if you look at the rest of them, these are the people that the Jets have requested. Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs. Colts defensive coordinator Matt I think it's Eberflus?
I think so.
Yeah, Eberflus. Titans offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. Rams DC Brandon Staley, which did a tremendous job on Russell Wilson today, by the way. That was... Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll. I mean, we'll talk about it. Robert Saleh, the 49ers defensive coordinator, Saints DB coach, Aaron Glenn, Ravens. I think the Ravens DC coach has been requested. That one's, I think, a maybe, but I'll dive into him. Don Martindale. I call him Wink. Panthers offensive coordinator Joe Brady, they interviewed today, I believe. And then Marvin Lewis, they interviewed, former head coach of the Bengals. Now, I look at that extensive list. I mentioned Matt Campbell not being on it was surprising that he wasn't going to interview. Another one that surprised me that's not on there is Pat Fitzgerald, the head coach of Northwestern. And I really like him. So that one kind of surprises me. And the reason why I like him is, he's been there for since 2006 to the present. Northwestern is not a football school. They're an academic school. And this guy won the Big Ten, big-time college football, Big Ten Western Division in 2018 and 2020. Okay? He was a coach of the year in 2018 for the Big Ten. This guy can coach. This is an academic school. This is not a big school. They ain't recruiting like Michigan. They ain't recruiting like Ohio State. They ain't even recruiting like Wisconsin. So, I really liked him. I'm surprised that the Jets didn't put in. But if you look at that list I just gave you, Mars, and I want to kind of give you the floor, who do you think is the favorite? It's early, but who do you think is a favorite, and who do you lean towards? I don't want to give your final takeaway on who you want as the coach because it's still early in the process. But who are you leaning to right now?
And who am I leaning to? Who would I want?
Yes.
Okay, so first off, the
early predictions on who the favorite is and who do you want?
Well, the favorite, I think a lot of people would be looking at Brian Daboll, right? I think that's the favorite a lot of people are wanting to get. Now, granted,
we have an interview. Fan base.
I have no idea about the Jets yet. Just because we haven't interviewed him. We're having an interview tomorrow, Sunday, with him because he just had his game today, so he's going to now take tomorrow to interview with us. But fan favorite, I think a lot of people look at Brian Daboll. Do I think that that's going to happen? I don't think so. I think the favorite right now is Eric Bieniemy. I think he is the favorite. He interviewed first.
Wait, you're confusing me. Brian Daboll is whose favorite? The fan favorite or the favorite for the Jets?
No, I think I said the fan favorite is to get Brian Daboll. The favorite right now
that you think is going to happen.
I think is going to happen is Eric Bieniemy.
What do you think about that?
And I'm actually a little bit more better with that. I mean, not last year, but when the Jets were looking for their coach
a couple years
ago, when the whole search was going around, there weren't really a lot of good candidates, right? And Eric Bieniemy was one of the candidates, and I wasn't not a fan. He was on my top 3 list of coaches I wanted, but his downside was the fact that he was part of a staff that was pretty loaded. You had Andy Reid, who is a fantastic head coach and offensive mind, and I felt as if every report was coming out saying that Reid was really doing all the work, and Bieniemy was really just the guy.
Reid, not so much doing the work,
calling the plays, offensive scheme, and he was just helping him with that. And I was like, listen, as much as Eric Bieniemy I'm sure is a great guy, I want a person that is going to have more control over what's going on in his situation. Now, more reports came out that Reid sets the scheme up, and Bieniemy's now calling the plays, which is now making really him as a possible head coach be a little bit more appealing. Now, Joe Douglas comes out and says he wants more of a manager coach, and now it's really more for me. It's I wouldn't be against Bieniemy being the head coach, but I also don't know how he is as a personality. Is he a manager, or is he like an Adam Gase, where he's an offensive guy and he doesn't really know how lick of really controlling the team in general?
And that it's a good point, and Joe Douglas made that. The Jets, and I agree with this sentiment. You're looking for a CEO.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm not so much on he's got to be an offensive guy or a defensive guy. Now, if you're gonna choose, if you're gonna lean away, I would lean offensively. Even though I know Adam Gase was supposed to be that, I would lean offensively because with the number 2 overall pick, you might be making a change at quarterback.
Yep.
So, but that's not going to be the deciding factor because whoever the CEO guy is, he needs to assemble a good staff.
Yeah,
and that's an important thing. And the Jets need to get their hands off of that distinction of allowing the coach to pick his staff. They can't force members on the coach.
Yep.
And that's going to be huge. And they said all the right things, Joe Douglas included, but I have to see it to believe it. And I think, just going through a couple names, Marsh, you mentioned Brian Daboll. That's one of my favorites for the Jets. And it's because of the work that he did And you saw it today with Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen deserves a lot of credit. But when Josh Allen came into the league in 2018,
he
had the worst completion percentage in football. Now, next year he also had the worst, but it improved from 52 to 59%, okay, from his first year to his second year. Okay, and from his second year to his third year, he was up to 69, which was, what was it, number 4? I think, let me just check the numbers. What was it?
I think it was definitely tough.
He was number 4.
Yeah.
In completion percentage.
Yep.
Offensively, in 2018, they were 30th in points. Awful. The next year, 29th, so you saw improvement. And then this year, in 2020, number 2. So this guy, who is, by the way, part of the Patriots, won Super Bowls, part of college football, won a national championship, and now we come back and he's working with Josh Allen. To me, this feels like a guy who has the experience. He's been a coordinator for a few years now. He, to me, is one of the favorites. And another one, just to give, because Pat Fitzgerald, which was in my opinion, I thought somebody who I really wanted to see the Jets interview, not going to happen to this point, is Arthur Smith, the Titans offensive coordinator. And the work he did with Adam Gase's former quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill came as a broken man, and he's been the offensive coordinator from 2019 to the present day. Tannehill is a top 10 quarterback. He is.
Yeah.
He's a top 10 quarterback. So,
listen, if I'm picking, I have my run of the mill, I would want Dybul. My thing as a Jets fan, and maybe this is just a sick habit of mine, is to never look too positive, because your hopes will be shot down really quickly when you look that way. So would I love for Dybul to be coach? I'd be ecstatic. But I'm not seeing it happen, just because I'm not saying the Jets' job isn't appealing, but you look at other coaching positions that are open, right? The Chargers' position, in my opinion, is probably the most appealing. You have a quarterback that broke the record for the rookie touchdowns, right? It looks like he's head and shoulders better than any rookie we've seen the past 2 seasons, right, in his development year 1. The Chargers have a lot of talent on this team, but just horrible coaching. Like, it was horrifying coaching. And I think that when you have a pick amongst all these teams, you would pick the Chargers, because they have a better chance of
the Bills definitely don't want to see him go to the Jets.
Yeah,
that I know too. But that would be my favorite. Who I think the favorite is, which I didn't give mine, and I know it hasn't been, but I could see him being added to the list, and that's Don Martindale, Wink. And the reason why I say it is because Joe Douglas says it's going to be an open, a lot of people being interviewed, and they'll make a decision. He's the only one who I see has a pure connection to Joe Douglas. They were both in Baltimore, okay? From 2011 to 2014, that's when Joe and Don, although he was in D.C. at that time, he was linebackers coach, I believe. They were in Baltimore together. He's someone who has a direct connection to Joe Douglas. And normally when you want to make your first coaching hire, you usually want to make someone that you have a somewhat of a repertoire with.
Yep.
Now, I don't know their person. I don't know if they have one. But that one, to me, kind of makes sense. He's a defensive coordinator, and most of the time we see teams when they start, have a guy fail on one side of the ball, they normally hire the guy on the other side. Don't you notice that? Like, if the guy fails on offense, the next coach usually is a defensive guy. And it's the other way around, right? When Todd Bowles, he's a defensive guy. When he got fired, what'd they do? They went to an offensive guy in Adam Gase. So, would it surprise me if Wink gets on the list and wins it? It would not. I actually think that it would kind of make sense. And again, I will not hate any of the options.
No, and that was one of the points I wanted to say. And when I was comparing it to last coaching search, the candidates were scary, right? And on the bottom of my list was Adam Gase, and he ended up becoming the guy who gets hired. This time around, I'm actually a lot more confident. And I think that was the point you're about to make, is that any of those dudes on that list I'd feel okay with.
Because of how bad Adam Gase was. But that's not the barometer that you want to set.
No, that's not what you want to be.
To me, what I was about to say was, I feel a lot more confident about this list. And not just that, what hit home to me is not what side of the ball they are, but how they assemble the staff. Mm-hmm. That's going to be huge to me. Again, and you don't win everybody over with a conference. But you can't have a conference that Adam Gase had last year.
No.
That can't happen.
That fits.
So those two things will be a better step on the foot. One thing would make me nervous is, guys who were coordinators for like 1 year. Okay? Brandon Staley did a tremendous job with the Rams. Tremendous. They're the best defense in football. He was defense coordinator for 1 year. He's 38 years old. That, to me, would be the biggest risk. I think, could be the highest ceiling because they're calling him the McVay of defense. There's not a lot of McVays. There really isn't. That one, stuff like that would make me a little nervous.
Or even like Joe Brady.
Then that, I believe, is going to be the next fan favorite. Because Matt Campbell is being crossed off the list. Joe Brady is going to be the next fan favorite, in my opinion. And it's because he's a really brilliant, based on NFL circles, offensive mind, kind of like the next Sean McVay of offense is Joe Brady. You're talking about a very young guy who was a coordinator for 1 year. Remember, in LSU, he was not technically the pure offensive coordinator, right? He was the passing coach, right? So he did a tremendous job with Joe Burrow. I mean, tremendous.
Yeah, great.
He got Joe Burrow the first overall pick. But that, to me, would be another risk.
Yeah, there's so many other candidates. Listen, I'm not ragging on Joe Brady or anything, but there's just so many other candidates that I feel more okay with, more content with, knowing that they are the head coach. And even we were talking about a bunch of different coaches here. I mean, if Eric Bieniemy becomes that coach, I'm completely fine with that. I'd be happy with that because he's a good coordinator. And, I don't know him as a personality. He might be that CEO type of character, we just really haven't seen it.
Now, to be fair, I mean, I can't be unfair to the people who watch this show and listen to it. And I always thought of why Eric Bieniemy hasn't been given a job yet, a head coaching job yet. And it was some interesting stuff I saw on NFL Network about some of his history. And this is not so much recent, but this does loom, okay? In 2004, he was a part, before 2004, I think it was 2002, he was part of the Colorado football program in college. And in 2004, he was linked to a recruiting allegation in Colorado that they were using alcohol and sex to recruit players. Okay? He also had a DUI in 2001 that he was arrested for. So I'm not saying that this guy doesn't deserve the chance, but that, to me, kind of makes a little bit of sense
on why he hasn't
yet. Because when you're the head coach, you're the CEO of the football organization. Okay? The GM you only get to see once a year or twice a year. The head coach has to talk to the media every day. Talk to the players every day. This kind of stuff can no way be, and it's not saying that the Colorado thing, Eric Bieniemy was running it, but he was linked to it. Mm-hmm. So that will follow it. The DUI is another thing. And people make mistakes. But that was back in 2001. That was 19 years ago.
That's a long time.
But that, to me, actually makes a little bit of sense.
It does.
Why that is.
And that was my thing even last year but when Gase was hired and no one hired Bieniemy, and nobody did. And that's why I was surprised because I was like, well, Jets are probably going to get Bieniemy, and they didn't. And then I saw no one got him. And it still surprised me because I'm like, but since then he won a Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
And he's becoming, I feel like, more linked to the offensive success. But the only thing that I look at Bieniemy, and I'm not ragging on him for this, but the Chiefs are so loaded. They're literally loaded with the best offensive talent in the NFL.
I agree with that. But when you watch their offense, and this is why, even being under Andy Reid, so what if Andy Reid makes this game? And this is my opinion, right? Bieniemy is under that. He's learning from that. The Chiefs are fun, and it's not just because of Patrick Mahomes. You see the shifts, the motions, the multiple screens, the attacking multiple levels of your defense. The Chiefs' offense, they have supreme talent. Patrick Mahomes is a supreme talent. Not everyone can do what Patrick Mahomes does, but you could see that the offense is explosive.
Yep,
it's very explosive and unique and diverse. And if you watch the Jets and you watch the Giants, they're painful to watch.
Yeah, they're very bland.
It's painful.
It's like watching paint dry. And I'll give you my prediction, right? And this is my early prediction. I think it's almost secured that Urban Meyer is going to the Jaguars. I think that's almost secured. The fact that he's assembling a staff, he gave them exactly how much money I want to get paid on national television. It tells me that I think he's going to go to the Jaguars. If Brian Daboll goes to the Chargers, the Jets are getting Eric Bieniemy. If Bieniemy goes to the Chargers, the Jets are going to get Daboll. That's my opinion. I think it's really between those two things because, like I said, the Chargers are such an appealing job offer.
So when they hire Robert Saleh, now it's going to be a complete.
I'd be shocked, but like I said, I wouldn't. I feel more confident about these candidates than anything. I just think the reason why I think the Jets are still an appealing position is because there's a lot of avenues in which you can go with the Jets. Like if you believe in Sam Darnold, you can stick with him and you can draft the best player available at 2. Or you can even trade back if you're still sticking with Sam.
And that's the next question I wanted to ask you. The new head coach. Mars, what do you do with Sam Darnold?
Now, look, I was contemplating wearing my Sam Darnold jersey to show my support, but it's hard, right? And I'm a Sam Darnold fan. Unfortunately, Sam Darnold is become a shell of himself. He's been put in such a horrible situation that any young quarterback, you can even if Deshaun Watson was on the Jets, I think he would struggle, right? Because the Jets for the past few years have been just horrifyingly bad. Not just their offensive line has been one of the worst in football for the past few years, but as a just unit, it just doesn't. Nothing fits. The wide receiver core is horrible. Running the ball is horrible. Just they couldn't keep him upright. Everything was just going wrong for him. He gets mono. Like all this stuff is just going bad to the point where where he looked like stable. That's where it's like, oh wow, look at Sam today. He's not throwing like 3 picks. Like that's our bar. And I'm not saying it's all Sam because it's not. But I just think Sam needs to change his scenery.
And he hasn't been good enough. I mean, you've kind of been going around, like stretching around that. And it's not all Sam's fault. I agree with you 100% with that. Now, how much percent of the blame? That's the part that can be argued. But there's no doubt that year 3 in the NFL, he was the lowest rated quarterback in football.
Yep.
And there's no getting around that. I mean, Carson Wentz was for majority of the season, but at the end of the year, by the time it finished, Sam Darnold was the worst. And at that, you could blame everybody. And Gase deserves a big portion. Joe Douglas deserves a portion. He put a crappy team around Sam.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you can't be the worst.
No, and so I'll just continue. The thing is, if Sam goes to another team and plays well, I wouldn't be surprised, because the Jets are so bad, and it would hurt me more because it would just tell me that the Jets situation is just so horrible that he couldn't be successful. So I can see the Jets drafting, whether it's Fields or
Wilson,
or Zach Wilson. Or somebody else. I mean, it's my opinion, only those two. Like I wouldn't go trade Lance. Like in my opinion, I could see that happening, especially with a brand new coach. If it's like Bieniemy or Daboll, I could see them saying, I want to start fresh. I want to pick my guy.
I can see any of the coaches.
Yeah,
and I could defensive guy.
Yeah, any of them.
But you leave it to him.
That's the important thing. And I could see the Jets trading Sam to a team for a 3rd round pick and that's the way we part ways. And it would be kind of the final culmination of how horrid McCaggan really was as a GM. The only bystander left is going to be the tight end.
Herndon.
Yeah, it'd be Herndon. He's the only one left. And from that famous picture of all the new Jet jerseys, and they have, it's like the Game of Thrones scene where everyone's whacked off except for one guy. And I thought Sam was going to be the last one, but he's not going to be. And it sucks, but I can really see that happening. The pipe dream, and I'll tell you the pipe dream, the rumors about Watson wanting to be traded, the pipe dream of the Jets being able to trade their 1st round, right? Seattle's pick and their pick, and then a 2nd round pick like next year for Deshaun Watson. That's a pipe dream, but do you think it sounds that outrageous that could happen?
If Jamal Adams cost a team 2 first-round picks, Deshaun Watson costs at least 3. So it would be probably this entire first round and one of the first rounds from next year, most likely. It'll probably require at least a 3rd or a 2nd, and it'll require a player. So Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what it would require. I don't think it happens because the GM, the guy from the Patriots, Cesario, he didn't come over there to start anew. He came over there because of Deshaun Watson. So they're going to mend the fence. I understand why Deshaun Watson's upset. But I could imagine that the GM is going to do everything in his power to appease to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun's upset because he was told by the owner that he was going to take his consideration into the coaching search and the GM search. And they just hired the GM without talking to him. So that's why he's upset. But I do think at the end of the day, they're going to mend that fence. They just signed him. So I think they do. So I think it is going to stay a pipe dream. But if it were to ever occur, the Jets are one of the few teams that I think could outbid the rest of the NFL to get a guy like Deshaun Watson. And to me, the odds of you picking a Deshaun Watson, number 2, whether it's Fields, Wilson, or Sam Darnold developing into Watson, is very low.
Yep.
It's very low. So all those people say, no, I don't want to trade that much capital. That's like when Russell Wilson was supposedly on the trade market a couple years ago. You trade everything for him. Because listen, he's elite now.
Deshaun Watson is the elite quarterback, and he literally was the only reason why the Texans didn't lose every single game this season, right?
Yes.
He's the only reason why. And I think that obviously they're like, well, we have a lot of holes to fill. Yeah, we know what? The biggest hole is the quarterback position, right? And if you have an elite quarterback, you can fill in the rest of those pieces with draft capital.
This is why the Jets assembled this many picks, so that even if they have to give up a haul, they will have picks available. But again, I think this is a pipe dream. I think the new coach is going to want to start over. The odds of them drafting a new quarterback versus keeping Sam, I really think is a 70-30.
Yeah.
I think it's 70% they get a new quarterback, 30% they keep Sam.
And the fact that Fields is played really well in the last game, if he plays even the same level as he did in the last game
against Alabama,
then I think he's going to be the second pick. And it really just is going to depend on that. I mean, just because the fact that Zach Wilson's done, there's no more tape to watch on him, like new games, and Fields is continuing going. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll find out. We'll talk more about it as we get closer to the draft. But, yeah, no, I think it's Sam. And I thought that the last throw he had was a pick. His last throw was a jet. And unfortunately for him, I mean, he's still a young guy. I know that everyone's going to use that excuse. He's still a young guy. And maybe with a change of scenery, he'll play better. And I just think it's not the Jets. And I feel bad because he wants to be a Jet. And you don't really hear that often. But it's unfortunately, Sam, you just didn't play well enough to really show what you can do.
I think he deserves another chance. He wasn't as bad as Josh Rosen or anything like that. But he definitely deserves a new chance. Probably not a chance it's like, oh, you're the starter. He's going to have to compete to win the starting job.
Yep.
But I think he deserves another chance, and I think he'll get one. It just won't be on the Jets. And I'd be more surprised if the Jets kept him and traded back or did anything like that. But just to give an update, Washington just scored. It's 28-22 Tampa Bay, 4 minutes and 51 seconds left. And that Heineke guy just threw a touchdown pass. That was a beautiful pass. It's crazy. I mean, this kid is playing really well. But moving on, Mars, let's go to basketball. Let's go to the Knicks. And the Knicks had a tough loss yesterday against the Thunder. They're 5-4. If the season were to end today, they'd be 5th in the East. So definitely a better start. Thibodeau has more wins than Fizdale did in 22 games, in 9. So you could tell there's a coaching difference. Obviously,
it's not even close. I mean, look, and I'm going to bring this up every time we talk about coaches. I was so right on David Fizdale. And I know you were trying to be positive, like you're like some sicko trying to be positive about the Knicks, but I knew right away that David Fizdale was horrible. And coaching really does make a difference. I think that's something that a lot of people disregard in the NBA. I mean, we all know that in the NFL, coaching makes a difference. But the NBA, it really does make a difference too. Like I know superstar talent, that's obviously going to make a big change, but coaching is going to also help. Like the fact that the Knicks are playing 100 times better than what this is almost exactly the same team. Like
a few differences.
Just a few. I'm saying, I said it's almost exactly like the same team. The difference is you have a different coach with a different mentality coming in. I mean, he's still yelling his face off, but the defense is playing a lot better. But the same old woes that we have is the offense.
And I wanted to bring it up. The reason why we're winning, and it all starts with defense. The Knicks are tied for 4th in the NBA in defensive rating. I mean, that's the huge difference.
Yep.
Okay, if you look at 8th in rebounds, 13th in offensive rebounds, and when the Knicks take shots, take 3-point shots, for the most part, they're 12th in 3-point field goal percentage at 36% as a team. Okay? So that's the good. Let's talk about the not good. And this is why I hope it continues, and I think the Knicks will be competitive, but I think they'll come back down to earth, unfortunately, a little bit. And it's because of these numbers, man. Okay. They're 19th in field goal percentage. That's not great. 23rd in free throw percentage. Not great. 25th in assists. 25th in true shooting. And a 27th offensive rating team in the NBA. You just mentioned it. You were about to mention it. Shooting and offense is a big problem for this team. And there'll be nights that they look really good. And then there are nights where it looks like they can't hit a thing.
No.
And that's what it looked like against the Thunder. But before we, go into the ugliness, which is going to haunt me for the rest of the season, even though everyone's feeling good, we have to give a huge props to Julius Randle. Okay?
Yep.
Randle under Fizdale was the most hated man in Knick Nation. He was. He was the most hated. And me and you gotta be fair. We disliked him.
Yes.
We thought this was going to be a waste. But this year, under Fizdale, so far, in 9 games, Mars, he's averaging 22.6 points a game, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists on 49% field goal percentage, 36% three-point percentage, and 75% free throw percentage. He's playing at an all-star level. And not just an all-star, almost to the point. Almost. If he gets his point total up a little bit more, looking at an MVP-type season. That's how good of a start Randle has been on. And he deserves a boatload of credit.
Of course.
And I got to tell you, the Knicks have an option next year on him. It's making it feel like it's a no-brainer you pick up the option because he's outplaying the contract. And he's really been kind of the bona fide leader and the number one guy. Although we both really wanted RJ, and we'll talk about that. He has been the number one guy.
Yeah, no, look, at the end of the day, I mean, we got to wait and see what happens with Randle. I mean, listen, Randle sometimes...
Yeah, but for the start of the season...
No, the start of the season, he's playing fantastic. And I am glad that somebody on this team is shooting as well as he is. I mean, and RJ's been playing better too, and we'll talk more about that.
Let's talk about him now.
I mean, consistency is really the biggest thing for him. I mean, he needs to continually play well. I mean, there are some games, lights out. Like, he plays great on all cylinders, and sometimes he just can't shoot for anything.
Nothing.
And having a guy, we looked at him as being, he needs to show us that he can be number one, right? And obviously, second season, I mean, he's a lot of room to grow. Still one of the youngest players in the NBA, but you have to just get better at shooting, and you can tell watching him play, he gets nervous.
He's
taking
not
the shot.
He's not confident in the outside shot.
Yeah, like the first few games, he was taking shots, even on the outside. And I kind of liked that idea, and he was playing well. But all of a sudden, just recently, just like nervous. And I don't like seeing that because how are you going to prove that you're the number one guy when you are just nervous to take a shot?
And maybe he's not. And that's what we always were afraid of, that he was not the number one, and the Knicks still needed to look for that guy. That was the biggest question mark that we had. And so far, I mean, it's 9 games, so we're going to see. But consistency is a big part of being the number one guy. You need to be consistent. If you're not consistent, you could be a number 2, but you can't be a number 1 unless you're, for the most part, you're consistent. And he's not a good three-point shooter to this date, and even his mid-range is suspect on some nights. But I will say this, he continues to try to drive, and I think that's good. Sometimes he has to learn to just take what the defense gives him. When the lane is clogged, you got to pass it out. Yeah. Right? You got to trust the play and make the play. Like, when he just tries to jump into guys and when, the lane's clogged, he's not like a crazy athlete. So, he's going to get his shot blocked by athletic dudes. And, that's the part about the RJ. Another thing, too, and I know, Knicks fans who have listened to us know my point guard disdain. Yep. And Elfrid Payton is playing well so far this season, for the most part. Still can't shoot to save his life from the outside. Can't. I'm shocked teams haven't even forced him. I mean, they've tried, but, how could you not be begging him to just shoot threes and just clog the lane every time he catches the ball? So, he's playing well, but I'm still to this point, and I'll keep saying, and he could prove me wrong. Like, he might prove me wrong. I might look like an idiot. I think when he plays a majority of the minutes, the team looks like garbage offensively.
No,
they don't move the ball.
No, they don't.
And the lane is clogged because they know this guy can't hit a shot. And it's not just his fault, because when you have RJ out there, Alfred Payton out there, okay, and Mitchell Robinson, there's no shooting.
No, there isn't.
Randall's not some sharpshooter, but Randall, like, he's shooting better than those guys. And Bullock's another player that I'm done. Like, I don't care for.
No, listen.
So you're talking about no shooting on the starting lineup. None. And, like, you're hoping Burks comes back and maybe he goes into the starting lineup, but it looked like Tibbs liked him coming off the bench. That starting lineup shooting is a serious, serious problem.
Yeah, no, listen. I completely agree with you. The fact is, and I'm probably going to take this point from you, but me and you both agree that Quigley should just be the starting point guard.
And, of course, he has his worst.
I know, last game looked horrible, and I know everyone's probably looking at me like, why would you want him to start over Peyton? But when you watched him in the beginning, right, the offense looked so much crisper. Like, it looked, because Quigley can do it all, right? He can shoot from the outside, and he can drive, and he can dish, and he's doing all of the things. He hit free throws. You know, Peyton feels like a very limited dude, and as much as Peyton's playing better than he did last year,
no doubt,
like by a mile, but he's still not that good.
No,
and at the end of the day, when you have two guys, right, one is a rookie and the other one is an older gentleman. He's not like that old, but he's an older gentleman than your rookie.
He's a 7-year vet.
Yeah, 7-year vet, and he's not growing. Who would you rather put in, especially at that same level, close to that same level? You put in the rookie because he needs to develop. The more minutes he plays. When you look at the stats here, Peyton's averaging 29 minutes a game. Quickly, 13.8 minutes a game. Yeah. What are we talking about? One guy is a 7-year vet, not going to develop to get better.
And he's not a part of your future.
Yeah, not part of your future. Quickly is your future.
You're hoping.
Yeah, hopefully. You have to find out, right? That's the whole point of why you put guys on the court, to find out if they're part of your future. But the fact is, like you mentioned, when Peyton's on the court, he is a driving type of guy. Randall, driving type of guy. Post-up type of guy. And RJ, driving type of guy. You're having a bunch, and then Mitchell's always underneath the hoop. You have literally everyone clogging the lanes. So what type of offense is that? At least when Quigley's out there, he can do different things. And he likes to shoot.
Well, Quigley, and I know it didn't look like last game because he wasn't good. But you're going to get that from him. You're going to get clunkers from rookies. But him being out there, at least gives the threat of a 3-point shot.
Yes.
It's a threat. That's the point. It's a threat. And at this point, I'm at the point that I just want to see the Knicks make the move and let the kid get his lumps, because a guy like Randall, who's there, he's been the one kind of dictating the offense.
Yep.
Okay, so Quigley's not getting the full. He's got to control the offense. He's got to do all this. He's the commander. Quigley likes to pass the ball around. Okay, he's not the bona fide floor general, but he can be. And Randall's been taking that role. So he has someone to lean on. And RJ can handle the ball. So it's not like Quigley's got to be, he's going to be under the most pressure of the team. He's not. And that's why just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
And if you want, first off, I don't even want Payne to get any minutes. I know he's been playing better. But, I know what he is. And he's on a 1-year deal. Unless we're going to constantly be giving this guy 1-year deals with no trade clauses in it, which is what the Knicks have been doing the last 2 years, it makes no sense. So this guy Quigley, because you had no faith in the other guy, and you know what? Frank and Dennis Jr. is trash. I mean, he shouldn't be on the court.
Dennis Jr. should
Frank
never,
didn't take the job from him. That's on Frank.
Yep.
So, whatever about the starting point guard. But Quigley came and he produced. Not consistently, because he's a rookie. But why wouldn't you want... The higher ceiling is with Quigley. That's what you want. And if you want to put Payton anywhere, put him in the second unit, even though I prefer, in my opinion, I would love to see a Frank Rivers backcourt.
Yep.
I really would. Rivers has been great coming off the bench, and he plays the fourth quarter because, and he's earned that. I would love to see a second unit of when Frank comes back, and we'll see when Obi Toppin comes back. but let's just say Obi Toppin's going to be out for a while. A Frank Rivers, Burks, Knox, and Nerlens Noel, right? That type of second unit intrigues me. Okay, when Burks comes back and Obi Toppin comes back, I don't understand the infatuation with Bullock either. I really don't. So I don't understand Bullock's infatuation. I would like to take Bullock out of the equation too and put Burks in the starting lineup because that adds shooting. That's what I would like. But that's what would intrigue me. And I want to see Quickly get more minutes than playing 6 minutes. I know he stunk. But I don't want to see Quickly playing 6 minutes.
No, I don't.
And it's the one thing, listen, Tibbs is a really good coach. He likes 9-man rotations. So we're going to need those bench guys because some of these guys, they can't be playing 39 minutes every freaking night.
No,
and that's what they're doing.
I think it has a lot to do that Thibodeau doesn't like to play rookies. And I get it, right? You want to win your win-now guy. But when your rookie is on the same level as your vet, what's the problem of playing the rookie to get him developed?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. Like, listen, we're 5-4. This is the best start we've had in several years. So us Knicks fans are sitting here just over sour grapes, just over the fact that we look at certain little things and we are unhappy about. But Thibodeau, I'll give you a hand, right? You are putting the Knicks back in the middle of the pack. Now, I hope that this play, that this 5-4 consistency continues throughout the second half of the season because, and I made this prediction several times before, the Knicks always like to start out well for the most part before Fizdale was even in the picture and then ended horribly and we just missed the playoffs. So if you can continue doing this throughout the whole season, we would make the playoffs, which is something that would make Knicks fans ecstatic. And I remember the other day watching the Knicks play, and it was a good game, a fight. The Knicks winning in Madison Square Garden. You know how much that place would be rocking?
Yeah.
And that's something that I miss seeing. I miss seeing the Knicks win games. They are a scrappy team right now, and I like that about this. But there are just some things, and we just talked about, that just confuse me. I just don't get it.
We got to talk about the Nets really quick because we're running out of time. The Nets started off 5-5. They're 8th in the East. And I'll just start off by saying when Kevin Durant and Kyrie playing, they're absolutely explosive. But already you're seeing them miss games.
That's the problem. You said when they play. That's the big thing.
Because Kevin Durant, now he's supposed to be coming back this weekend. He was in protocol for the COVID stuff. And then Kyrie Irving kind of went MIA. I mean, he just didn't show up, and it was for personal reasons, and the coach didn't know where he was for a while. And you would think that would be the biggest story in New York. But again, that kind of gives you the Knicks and Nets dynamic. It was very strange. But the point is, you're already seeing them miss some games, right? Already. So we're going to see. But when they both play, they're absolutely explosive. Just to give you some numbers offensively. Offensively, when they're full tilt, they're 4th in pace, 10th in field goal percentage, 6th in 3 points made, 4th in 3-point percentage, 6th in free throw percentage. Offensively.
No, they're
electric.
Yeah.
Even defensively, they're not bad when they're all together. But there are lapses on defense, and turnovers is where they're really getting struggle. 26th in turnovers. So, Mars, what is your quick evaluation, because we're running out of time, on this situation?
Yeah, this Nets team is exactly what everyone was looking at. And me and you both said this. Offensively, they are a juggernaut. And I was surprised of how well Kevin Durant comes back from a major Achilles injury and just shows up and just starts saying, I'm still the guy that I was before this injury. And I'm glad for him. I was nervous for the Nets, and I was, as you could tell, I was upset when the Knicks couldn't get this deal done. But I'm glad for them. But I also did know, and we both said this when they first signed them, they're both nuts. Now, Kevin Durant looks like the more stable force at this point, but Kyrie is out of his mind. Just going MIA and saying, I just feel like playing. And, just randomly, no indication.
There's got to be more reasons to it.
Yeah, but still, the fact that, at a given night, he'll just be like, I'm not playing tonight. It's a shortened season. We need you to play.
And listen, we know what's going on in society, but basketball games didn't get canceled. Nope. People were playing, so I'm interested to see what exactly happened. But it was very strange. Moving on though, Mars. Finally, at the end of the show, because it's the new year, I just wanted us to give our New York sports version of a New Year's resolution And for me, I'm just going to give one. And it's a big one. And you kind of said it at the beginning of the show, which kind of took my thunder a little bit. But can we get back to playoffs in 2021? I'm not talking about just one team. But in 2021, can New York sports get back to the playoffs? I want to see multiple teams in the playoffs. So that's a message out to the Giants, to the Jets, to the Yankees, to the Mets, to the Knicks, and to the Nets. There is some opportunity there. Now, the Jets are rebuilding, okay? Giants need to make a jump. They got to go from 6 to at least 500 or better. And with 7 slots in the playoffs, there's an opportunity for that. For the Knicks, I'd love to see this 5-4 start, then be competitive all the way to the end. Try to steal a spot. Listen, I'm big on this next draft class, but I would be okay with the Knicks making the playoffs. I want that. The Nets, they have to. Right? So you want to see those teams. You want to see the Yankees and the Mets both in the playoffs competing. So for 2021, let's get back to the playoffs.
Yeah, no, look, I'll steal it with you. I mean, at the end of the day, I want to see New York be a contender again. I mean, and I saw someone say this, and I forgot who it was, but on social media. But when the Knicks are a winning team, the NBA is so much more fun. And maybe it's because we're just so adamant, big Knicks fans. But when New York is a place to watch basketball, just like when you watch LA, when the two major East and West Coast markets are contenders, the leagues are so much more fun. And that's the same thing for football. If the Giants and Jets were both playoff contenders, along with the Rams and even the Chargers, more people would want to watch. Yeah. And the NFL is always fun, but imagine our teams. Imagine New York was a contender. That'd be great. And the Yankees, they're always there. Imagine the Mets being a contender like they were just not that long ago.
Yeah, and because you copied me, like a cheap scam artist right there. You just copied my resolution. I'll add a second one then. And that's for our New York sports teams, the Giants and Jets, not to be in quarterback hell. I'll add that one for 2021. Hopefully, I'm hoping for whoever the quarterback for the Jets becomes, and Daniel Jones, please don't put us in quarterback hell. All right, so that's the show, everyone. We want to thank everyone for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. We hope you had a great holiday season, a safe holiday season, and, kind of the shout out to our little YouTube break right here going live. But we want to appreciate everyone for tuning in, constantly giving us the feedback, and giving us the drive to keep talking sports. So I want to thank all you guys, and we'll see you all next week. I hope you have a great sports-filled weekend, and we'll see you all at a later time.